Hi everyone. This video is going to be a tutorial on this lesson right here, which is how to find the inverse of a function. All right, so what is the inverse of a function? All right, so that's a pretty simple idea. The inverse is switch the x and y. All right, so that's what you're doing. You're going to switch the x and the y. And then you're going to rewrite to solve for y. All right, so that's pretty simple. It sounds a little scary, but it's actually super simple. All right, so let's look at our first problem here, which says find the inverse of this function. So we have f of x equals a negative 5/3. Now we already don't like this because it is a fraction. And subtract 5. All right, so the first thing we have to remember is that, I'll write a little note here in a different color. All right, the first thing we have to remember that whenever we see f of x, all right, f of x and y mean the same thing. All right, so an f of x is actually a y. All right, so what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say this is y equals negative 5/3 x minus 5. All right, so, and that's how we start. All right, so I said an inverse was simple, that we just switch the x and the y. All right, so we're going to switch the x and the y. All right, so that means that we're going to put, back to our nice blue color here. All right, we're going to put the x over here, and we're going to put the y over there. All right, and now that is actually an inverse function. Now, notice that over here, when we say the answer, and the way we write an inverse is f negative 1 of x. All right, negative 1 means inverse, so negative 1 means inverse. Just like exponents, same thing. Negative 1 means inverse. All right? So we can't leave it like this. So we have to get this rewrite for y. All right, so that's what we're going to do next. We're going to rewrite for y. All right, so that means we have to get this y all by itself. All right, so I'm going to rewrite though. I'm going to put the y in red. All right, now we need to get that y by itself. All right, so this is just like a simple algebra problem. How are we going to do that? All right, so first thing we're going to do is add 5 to both sides, so plus 5. So now this says x plus 5 subtract 5/3 y, and these two canceled out. All right, so now I'm almost there. Now, here is the tricky fraction. I hate this part. How do we get rid of this negative 5/3? We get rid of the negative 5/3 by multiplying it by its inverse. All right, so we are going to multiply. Well, first off, let me make a little more room here. I'm going to move this over to show you what I'm doing. All right, we need to multiply this times the inverse. All right, so the inverse of that is going to be a negative 3/5. All right, now notice that when we cross multiply here, those cancel out. All right, so that means on this side, we have to multiply this times a negative 3/5. All right, and so now here's what this says: -3/5 times x plus y equal x plus 5 equals y. All right, so let's see if they'll let us put in the answer like that. Now remember, this y is the same as f of x, so this, and since this is our inverse now, we're going to call this the inverse of f of x. Just like up here at the top, we started with an f of x. Now we're going to put the f of x in. Now over here on the answer, they already put this y is the inverse of function over here. So let's see if they'll let us put our answer in like this, or if they're going to make us multiply it out. All right, so our answer is going to be -3 divided by 5 times x plus, yeah, I don't think they're going to let us do this, because right up here I see that it has to be in slope-intercept form, but let's try. Submit, and let's see, no, they're not going to let us do that. Okay, so they're going to make us multiply out this fraction. All right, so we have to do this distribution, -3/5 times x plus 5. All right, and so this is just a simple little distribution problem. We're going to multiply this, and we're going to multiply that. All right, so we have -3/5 times x. Well, that's pretty easy. And then we have -3/5 times 5. Okay, so we're going to write that like 5/1. All right, and then this part, so this is pretty easy, -3/5 x. And then we have -3 times 5 is, so -15/5. And so, well, that's actually not too bad. -3/5 x minus 3. All right, so now we have to come back over here and get rid of this other stuff and put -3/5 x, subtract 3. Now we're going to submit that for our answer. And this time they liked it. All right, so let's look at our answers, our steps, what we did here, and then we'll go back and do another one. All right, so the first thing we did was change f of x to y. All right, so that's not really a step, but we'll call it step 1. Okay, then step 2 was, that's not a 2. Step 2 was switch. And then step 3 was all this mess here to rewrite. All right, so step 1, change this f of x to a y. Step 2, switch them, and then rewrite. Okay, so step 1, 2, 3. All right, let's do our next problem. All right, oh, this one is much simpler. Well, we like that already. All right, so f of x equals -3x plus 9. Notice that this is not really a hard concept, but you know, they make it a hard concept by giving you all these negative numbers. And all right, so the first thing, our step 1 was change this to y. That's it, right? Okay, so step 1, that's step 1. Change to y. So that's a pretty easy step. Okay, step 2 is switch. All right, so step 2 is switch x and y. Switch x and y. All right, so these two are going to switch places. All right, And I'll just rewrite those so we see we're putting the x over here, and we're putting the y over there, plus 9. I realize I'm holding this sideways on my knee, so it's making it go sideways. All right, so that was step 3. All right, now the messy step, which is, so step 3 is rewrite this for y. Holy cow. Rewrite this for y. All right, so I mean, that's very messy, so let's 3x plus 9. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to subtract 9 from each side. All right, subtract 9 from each side. That's going to give us x subtract 9 on this side, and it's going to give us negative 3y on that side. That goes away. All right, so our next step is going to be to divide both sides by 3y, negative 3. All right, so we divide this by negative 3, and we divide this by negative 3, and we get negative x over 3, and negative 9 divided by negative 3 is a positive 3, and so that is equal to y. All right, so that wasn't too bad. And now remember that y is the same as, this y is the same as the inverse of x, which we already have over here. All right, so let's put this in, negative x divided by 3 and plus 3, and we hit submit answer and got a green check. All right, so good luck with those.